Good evening, everyone. Good day, good morning, wherever you're listening from. My name is Michael Savides, and I'm the Startup Grind Chapter Director for Los Angeles. And Startup Grind, for the first time viewers, will know that we are a global community of entrepreneurs, innovators, and investors. And one of our key values is that make friends and not connections. And the whole point of that is we are always trying to help and give everyone the best opportunities for success. And with Women's Month at Startup Grind, we have a strong focus on tech entrepreneurs, not only in technology, but in all facets of business. And with regards to today's discussion, we have obviously an individual that is very focused on fintech and in the technology space, which is in the past and probably still to this day a very male dominated industry. And with that comes a lot of challenges, hurdles, but also opportunities for individuals like Sandra Blair, who is our guest today. And thank you so much for joining, Sandra. How are you?
I'm great, Michael. So nice to be with you today.
Thank you so much, so much. So, for those of you that don't know, I'm excited to have Sandra for today. She's the CEO of Payverse, and we will explore various facets, not only of being a female leader in tech, but also how the journey has shaped Sandra into the individual she is today. And I'll go through some of her accolades now. So just a bit about Payverse. So Payverse was founded in 2022. It's still a relatively young company that has made significant amounts of strides in the space already. And Payverse is a payment processor focused on enabling the global commerce by integrating emerging technologies. So my guest today, one thing I always will laugh about with Sandra, the first thing I learned about her was that her admiration for tennis, and something that I've also grown up playing. And not only is she an avid tennis player, but she's also very focused on alternative payments. So having grown up in Philadelphia, she initially attended Penn State, and she started a career as a programmer, which is interesting because she worked for a brokerage company, got a degree in computer science, and it's essentially led her to the illustrious career that she has. So Sandra has taken on roles as Senior Vice President of Product Development for Vital Processing. She was the Chief Product Officer of Payouts Network. She also took on various roles within Banco Payment Solutions, the CIO, CTO, and COO role. So a very diverse background with a lot of experience and expertise, which we will hopefully extract as much information as we can, particularly for our female entrepreneurs and innovators and investors that will be watching this and will obviously take part in further discussions. So jumping straight into it, Sandra, I think the first thing that I wanted to ask is obviously Payverse is a relatively new organization being founded in 2022. How did the company come about, and what was your involvement from the beginning?
Sure. Thanks, Michael. So really how it came about was, and I think kind of start with like lessons. Sometimes you just can't predict what's going to happen, right? And so my co-founders, through a mutual connection through the IMF, met the chairman of UnionPay in Shanghai about 4 years ago, and put together a technology and a bank sponsorship model to help drive the adoption of UnionPay acceptance. UnionPay is the largest card brand in the world, larger than Visa and MasterCard, with little adoption in the United States. And so I was brought on to be an advisor a few years back. And as we built the technology and the bank sponsorship model about almost 2 years ago now, the board asked me to become the CEO. And so that's how it came about.
Amazing. I don't think they could have chosen anyone better. And that's not me blowing your flute. It's just me knowing what work you've done and obviously been introduced to a few of the people you've introduced me to. I think you have a very good reputation and it's very much deserving. So I think one of the things I wanted to cover is you guys had raised a seed round for an undisclosed fee, and the round was led by the Artemis Fund. And for those that are watching here, and those that you don't know. And it's something that's really inspiring and I think relevant and pertinent to not only women in tech or Women's Month, but to also female entrepreneurs, is that the Artemis Fund is also well known to invest in phenomenal female talent that are modernizing and diversifying wealth. So my question to you is, obviously being a female founder, being a female CEO, How was the capital raise? How did that process go? What are some of the learnings that you have garnered from that process?
Yeah, it's never an easy process. I think for those who are listening here, I think if you go into it with an ego, you certainly leave it without an ego.
Yeah.
And I think that some of the biggest learnings are that, if you're an expert in your industry, and I've been in payments for most of my career, you need to remember that the investors come from all over and they're not necessarily experts in your field. So really explaining the basics of why somebody would want to buy your product, how are they going to make money off of your product, rather than digging into the technical nuances or the shiny penny that you may think that you have. I think it was probably the biggest learnings in terms of starting the conversations and being able to quickly and succinctly explain your value proposition and why they should invest with you.
Thanks for that. And just like a sub question from that, it's an important thing also with myself having raised capital in the past. I think an important thing when you have investors is obviously to have some form of alignment and also to have some sort of support, right? And with the Artemis Fund obviously leading the round, what has that experience been like working with such a profound fund?
Well, it's really been amazing for me. Most of my career, and we may talk some more about this, has been sitting at a table where I'm the only woman at the table. And to have our lead investor be a group of amazing women and a women-only VC fund that really supports women across the board. And not only do they support me, they also have put together a whole organization of all of their founders where at least monthly we all spend time together sharing our experiences, helping each other, building each other up, helping us invest in more women to bring to the table and more women to bring into our company. So really an amazing experience that I've never experienced before in my career.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And I think a lot of people, and particularly the females that are watching this, will obviously take a lot of inspiration for that. And maybe they actually could reach out to the Artemis Fund for their round of investing, if it obviously is fit. I do know it's a very complicated and competitive environment. So you did mention just prior to this the relationship you have with Union Pay, and for those of you that are listening and don't know what Union Pay is the largest obviously card issuer in the world. I think they have over 9 billion cards that are issued, and what is so interesting is that they came to Payverse exclusively with the request to develop the first compliant US bank sponsorship model for Union Pay acceptance. And I think that that's incredible. And I actually met one of the Union Pay individuals when Sandra and I met a few weeks ago. And having launched in 2022 and already paved the way and achieve such progress with the Union Pay already. So with B2B transactions still on to this very day being very archaic, and what I mean by that is leveraging checks and paper. And this creates a lot of frustration, not only for people trying to do business in the United States, but with foreign entities and foreign internationals trying to transact with US-based businesses. So having said that, can you just explain to us and take us through the relationship you have with Union Pay and how that the relationship has created a lot of value for your customers and essentially help differentiate Payverse?
Sure. I think the biggest value, or initially when I met the Union Pay team, and as you said, you got to meet some of the team, is really the education that they've given us. Being in payments for almost 30 years, I didn't really understand the number of Union Pay cards, the average ticket, which is north of $1,000, the demand of people being in the United States, wanting to pay for tuition, wanting to pay for their travel, and not being able to use their card of choice. And so really the relationship has been one of where they're advocates of Payverse, but along the way, they're also helping us from a market perspective of where is the demand and where should we be focused, and they're actually going to market with us. So you really can't have a better partner than that.
And you know, it's so interesting. I can totally resonate with that frustration of being like a foreigner coming here and trying to get your feet off the ground. I remember when I came to the US in 2019, I was having to use my own personal card from South Africa because the banking system here was so slow in getting me a card. They're having to mail that card to me as well, and it got lost in the mail 2, 3 times, if I can recall. And just for a person that's moving to a new country with amongst all the other issues that or hurdles you will face, this is something that you wish you can actually have attended to off the bat. So I think it's adding a lot of value and I can see the value in that. And you just mentioned now that I think the education around technology and people's finances, I think a large part of the US population, sadly so, they don't want to figure out and understand all the emerging technologies and how these things work. And it can be confusing and complicated for a lot of people. So obviously education, as you touched on, is a massive, especially around the financial technology. How do you guys take that challenge on? How do you educate? How do you intend to educate your users?
Yeah. I mean, some of it, I mean, in today's age is through social media. And so we really utilize social media to be able to educate folks as well, to be able to show our technology. So we also have videos and other learning opportunities. I also speak around the country and at a lot of events, and just continue to keep that dialogue going. And I'm always open to having a conversation with somebody, to being able to go on site at a corporation and being able to talk to sales teams, to talk to merchants. I really think, and things like this, Michael, which I appreciate, I think the more we can continue to communicate with people at all different levels and on all different forums, really spreads the word. And one of the things that I wanted to mention when you talk about financial literacy or just financial technology, and especially from a global perspective, one of the things that's very important to the Artemis team and very important to us is to also have social impact. And one of those things that we can do is to be able to help people from a social impact perspective that are coming to the United States. They don't have US banking relationships, or they're somewhere else in the world trying to do commerce with the United States and having a hard time figuring out how they're even going to get paid. And so that's really important to us, to be able to help facilitate all of those friction points that exist today.
Yeah, and I think you just touched on something that's going to lead me to my next question. So you mentioned obviously there's various verticals of commerce, also e-commerce and people transacting not only nationally but internationally. I think with consumerization, globalization, as well as the high demands of customers. I mean, we all order stuff on Amazon. We expect things to be delivered within the next day, or even sometimes within the next 12 hours. And with that requires fast payments. And I think this is something that you guys are looking to tackle or already are. What are some of the challenges you face with regards to this facet of doing transactions in real time?
Yeah, and I wouldn't. Again, I'm continuing to learn as well in this space as
Yeah.
much as anybody. And FT published this incredible B2B report. And one of the things that they noted, and one of the things that we continue to educate people on, is it takes an average of 32 days, believe it or not, from payment initiation to payment reconciliation when people are sending funds for a B2B transaction globally. I mean, in this day and age where you can buy something and have it appear at your door, like you said, same day, and the fact that it takes 32 days to move money around the world. So yes, we have implemented solutions to push money globally, not only across the UnionPay network, but also we're in the middle of implementing the ability to push money to 165 countries through the Visa and MasterCard networks as well. So we're leveraging the existing global networks to actually push money around the world so that money can arrive in another country within a day rather than 32 days.
I think that's incredible, and one of the things I just picked up now, and I think is a good trait and a good characteristic of a leader and a CEO, is actually acknowledging some of the things that you don't know, or some of the gray areas. And I think that's a good learning for a lot of the people that are watching this. I think you often think that you need to know everything and you need to be able to answer every question. And I've learned also in life that the more honest you are with regards to your limitations on a specific topic, the more people are willing to actually help you and reach out to you. Because I think when you go into a conversation acting like you know everything, you do open yourself up to some criticism and you do leave some open holes. So for the people that are watching this, I think that's a good bit of or a good learning is that if you don't know something, be honest about it, be vulnerable, and a lot of people will be willing to help you and reach out. I think that's a really good thing. So, which leads me to my next question, and I think you've kind of touched on this now, but obviously you've had quite an illustrious career, and you've taken on various executive roles in different fintech payment companies. You would have obviously, I would imagine, have experienced some adversity, particularly being a female leader in, like you mentioned, being the only female at the table in a room. What is some advice you could give to some of the younger learners that are getting into the entrepreneurship space? Not learners, but younger entrepreneurs, even investors. There's a lot of female investors looking to become angel investors, but you're all sitting at a table that's typically male dominated. What is some of, maybe you can give us an example of something that you had to overcome, and that will, I think, guide the listeners.
Yeah, I think that there's a few. I mean, the biggest thing is building relationships. I think one of the things that people always need to understand that business is built on relationships. It's not built on products. And, whether there was a male counterpart next to me who may not even know me or just assume things about me. And I think it behooved me to build relationships so they understood who I was, right? You have to build respect no matter who's sitting at the table. And building respect and getting to know people on a personal level and on a professional level is really important. Plus, it makes your job more exciting, right? To have real relationships with your counterparts. And I think one of the things, especially maybe for some of the younger audience, is to make sure that you don't fall into what I consider maybe just societal traps where you're the only woman at the table and maybe everybody's looking at you to take notes for the meeting, or everybody's looking at you to pick up lunch after lunch has been served or to serve lunch. And
Yeah.
I think the best way to deal with that is through humor, right? I certainly would not recommend that you take on those roles, but if that's what's expected or you feel that everybody's looking at you, I think to answer it with a joke and just say, what, is everybody expecting me to do this because I'm the only woman in the room? I think, breaks the ice and gets everybody to kind of realize that, first of all, you're not going to do it. And second of all, you shouldn't be expected to do it, but it doesn't, get people angry or back on their heels. So I think dealing with this humor is probably the softest way to deal with some of the misperceptions about women at the table, I think.
I absolutely love that. I think that's like dropping subtle hints, but also it does raise the point that this is not what I'm here to do. And I think that's a very good piece of advice. I think a lot of people can actually take that on. So that's actually very cool. The one thing that I've learned about you in the time that we've got to know each other is that you have this incredible amount of drive and ambition. And I think a lot of people will extract that from various facets in their life, whether it's their family, whether it's their kids, whether it's their health, whatever it is. Where does your drive come from? Where does this fire in your belly continue to come from?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's being a mom, and I think it's, showing my son that, I can do anything that I put my mind to, which means he can do anything he puts his mind to. And I think that continues to evolve. And so new opportunities and challenges come my way, and I want to be able to tackle them. And I also do look at myself as a mentor to other women. And I think it's easy to give up when you're in tough situations over and over again and feel like you're standing there by yourself. But I think for the other women in business and in technology, that it's important for me not to give up and continuing to show people what they can do. And, taking on new things that, again, women have a tendency to not take on things that they don't think that they're overqualified for. So
Yeah.
taking on opportunities where it is the first time I've ever done it before, where I do need to reach out for help. I do need to ask questions. and being okay with, knowing 80% of the whole picture, I think. And it makes it exciting. It makes you be a life learner, which I am. So.
Yeah, you never stop learning. And I think one thing I wanted to ask you is, I think with being a female in such a high position, obviously facing significant amount of challenges, what was one thing that you've experienced that you never thought you'd be able to do and it actually became relatively easy to do? I can give you an example what I mean by that. Like if you're going into a particular meeting and you have to seal this deal, and it's a form of negotiation, for example, and before you actually felt like that's almost impossible to do, and you came out of that like patting yourself on the back. Have you ever gone through something like that? Had a preconceived thoughts about something and actually ended up being a lot better?
Yeah, there's a couple. I think probably the biggest one is public speaking. So when, I was first started, whatever, 25, 30 years ago, and was asked to do public speaking, it was the biggest terror I think I've ever felt in my life. And now,
For a lot of people, it is.
yeah, and now I can be on a stage with, thousands of people, and I really feel like I've learned to enjoy the moment, get something out of it, connect with the audience. And again, answering questions at the end of a public speaking engagement was even more nerve-wracking than actually speaking, because you never knew what somebody was going to ask. And really being yourself and being transparent on stage, leaving the stage knowing that you gave the audience everything that you had, answered all the questions, you were who you are, naturally, I think is the best feeling. So that certainly has evolved. And when you say negotiations, kind of similarly, for people that know me or get to know me, I'm very transparent, which in some, can be taken in a good sense and can be also taken negatively, because I don't sugarcoat anything. But when you talk about negotiations, I think that's how you need to be. And one of my board advisors actually just said to me the other day, I was talking about a negotiation that I might need help with. And he said, that's the last thing you need help with. And so I think even though you might be getting better at something, I think we're always insecure, right? And we always don't think that we do as good of a job as maybe others see us doing. And so it's always improving, but always kind of having those nerves, regardless of whether it's public speaking or negotiation. It's never easy.
Yeah, and I think a massive facet of that is probably a different, the same definition but a different word is imposter syndrome, right? I think regardless of the success in which you individuals achieve, they will very, very high performers, high people with high ambitions will typically face imposter syndrome, which is kind of in line with what you were saying. Now, I've read many books of very successful entrepreneurs and people in business. They still focus on that to this day. But one of the things that I learned, I was listening to a podcast by Stephen Bartlett, the Diary of a CEO, and he interviews very, very successful, very wealthy individuals, and they all bring this up, this imposter syndrome. And I think one thing that I've learned is that how they deal with it is the mere fact that they're aware of it. And the minute you're aware of it, is that's kind of how you take it on. And I think that's a good learning for the people that would be listening to this. And I think you kind of described that in a different way. So coming to the end now, I mean, what is the next 5 to 10 years looking for you and for Payverse, do you believe? Is it too soon to say that? But I would imagine you have certain kinds of ambitions and milestones you want to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, with Payverse, I really want to build this into a global organization where we're really connecting all the countries around the world to be able to transact with each other in an easier way, especially when you focus on small businesses and the small businesses that try to survive no matter what country they're in, for sure. And really growing it to being a company that others emulate and would be my goal, for sure. And for myself is to continue to give back to the community, to be a mentor to others, to hopefully be on boards who also have a lack of women representation today, and really kind of be a model for others coming up through the technology ranks.
Amazing. And one thing I think you haven't mentioned it is that I do know, and I'm aware that you are involved in various diversity and inclusion, inclusive initiatives and communities. Do you want to speak a bit about that?
Sure. There's many groups that have come to me and asked me to speak on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I continue to talk even outside of payments. I mean, one of the things that has also been an awareness of mine, especially over the last 5 years, is I've been in the same industry for the most part, most of my career, and adding kind of my voice to other industries and showing them how women can succeed in the payments industry and how that then parallels into their industries is important. So really trying to broaden that exposure for diversity, equity, and inclusion across all sorts of different industries and in other countries as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So again, thank you so much for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I think you answered the questions very well. And one of my traditions before we end off when I'm interviewing someone is I like to ask them the question is that if you had the opportunity to have dinner, go on a night out, play golf, play tennis with any three individuals, who would they be and why?
Sure.
And you can play tennis and go for a night out afterwards if you like with these
Okay,
individuals.
well, that's good. So
Because
lots
I
of
mean, like if you had like Boris Becker come join you, I'm sure it'll be a kind of interesting evening.
I think it would be Ruth Gator Ginsburg. I mean, she's just an amazing woman who, well before her time, showed the world what women can do. Another personality that I just admire incredibly is Obama and how he did so many firsts for this country and was a role model for so many people. Is just amazing. And then, of course, we can't leave tennis off. So it would have to be Nadal because I've been his fan favorite for a long, long time and just a good soul. So I think three people that just are good people, regardless of how successful they were, and just good role models for others. So those three would be my choice.
I love that. That would be fantastic, actually. So we've come to the end. Sandra, again, thank you so much for your time. I think you are incredibly inspiring, and I think a lot of people that will watch this will draw a lot of inspiration. And for those of you that want to reach out to Sandra, I will put her LinkedIn profile in the description as well as the link to Payverse. And is there anything else you would like to end off with before we say goodbye, Sandra?
No, I think just please, people reach out to me, any question. I'm just happy to help. I would love to answer any questions or help anybody on their journey.
And what I would say is she really means that. She's helped me a lot in my journey, and I really appreciate you and appreciate everything you've done for me. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael.
All
Good to
right,
see you.
cool.